Have you ever noticed something strange in your body, like a little shift in how you feel, and wondered if it meant something more serious? Most people brush these things off. A small change here, a little discomfort there. They chalk it up to getting older, just part of the process. But what if those small signals were actually quiet warnings? Not dramatic red flags, but soft whispers from the body saying, "Pay attention." This video is going to take you into that space, the quiet signs that something deeper might be happening. Specifically, 5 warning signs that 99% of seniors show in the year before they pass away. Now, let's be clear right from the start. These signs don't guarantee anything. They don't mean someone's life is coming to an end with certainty, but they do mean the body is trying to say something. These patterns have been noticed over and over again by hospice nurses, caregivers, doctors, and loved ones who've walked with someone through their final chapter. When you know what to look for, you have the chance to respond, to adjust, to prepare, and sometimes even to help someone get a bit more time or more peace in the time they do have. Some of these signs are emotional, some are physical, and all of them are easy to miss if you're not looking. But once you know them, you'll never unsee them. Maybe you'll think of a parent, a grandparent, or even yourself. This isn't a video meant to create fear. It's meant to open your eyes and give you a clearer lens through which to see what the body is really saying. Let's start with the first one. Number 1. Heightened sensitivity to temperature and physical discomfort. This is one of those signs that slips under the radar because it can look so ordinary. Someone starts feeling cold more often. They begin to reach for an extra blanket when everyone else is fine. They say things like, "This breeze feels sharp," or "I just can't get warm." At first, this might sound like typical aging. But when you see it happening more often, more intensely, and alongside other shifts, it's time to pay closer attention. The human body is a master of regulation. It keeps us warm, keeps us cool, makes sure blood gets where it needs to go. But as we age, that fine-tuned system begins to struggle. Blood flow isn't as strong, fat stores shrink, and the skin gets thinner. That means warmth leaves the body faster and cold sinks in deeper. What used to feel neutral now feels harsh. Even the feeling of a bedsheet can change. It might feel scratchy, heavy, or just wrong. Some people start tossing and turning more at night. They say they're uncomfortable, but they can't explain why. This isn't just about being fussy. It's the body signaling a deeper shift. The systems that once kept everything balanced are now slowing down. Circulation decreases, oxygen moves more slowly, and the body begins to conserve its energy. That conservation shows up as a kind of hypersensitivity. Everything feels just a little bit more intense than before. Let me give you an example. There was a man named George, 82 years old, who used to love his early morning walks, even in the winter. His family started noticing that he stopped going outside, even when it was sunny and mild. Instead, he wrapped himself in 2 sweatshirts and stayed indoors. He kept saying, "I just can't shake the chill," even when the room was warm. At first, everyone thought he was just getting older, maybe a little thin-blooded. But a few months later, George was diagnosed with congestive heart failure. Looking back, the signs were all there. The cold, the discomfort, the flinching from touch. His body was telling the truth long before the diagnosis did. And it's not just physical. As this sensitivity grows, many people also start reacting emotionally. Loud sounds feel jarring. Bright lights feel too much. Crowds feel overwhelming. Their tolerance for stimulation drops, and they start to pull inward. This can look like someone becoming grumpier, more withdrawn, or even a little confused. But it's not always a change in personality. It's a change in how much their body can handle. This is why it's so important not to dismiss these changes. If someone you love suddenly starts layering on sweaters in springtime or flinches when they sit on a textured cushion, ask what feels different to them. Offer soft materials, lower lighting, warmer drinks. These things might seem small, but they make a huge difference. What you're really doing is listening to their body and helping it feel safe again. There's a kind of tired that a good night's sleep can fix. But then there's another kind, a heavy, unshakable fatigue that settles deep in the bones and never really goes away. This is the kind of exhaustion many seniors begin to feel about a year before the end of life. And it's often mistaken for simply being old or out of shape. But it's different. It's a quiet warning from the body that its energy systems are starting to shut down. You might notice this fatigue in subtle ways at first. A loved one who used to go for daily walks suddenly skips them more and more. Someone who used to enjoy cooking starts ordering takeout or skipping meals altogether. Maybe they start falling asleep in the middle of conversations or need to rest after doing something as small as folding laundry. And even after resting, they still feel drained, not refreshed, just empty. This kind of fatigue is often tied to deeper issues. As the heart works harder and oxygen delivery slows, the body begins to prioritize energy for its most essential functions. That means less energy for socializing, for hobbies, for cleaning, even for simple conversations. It's like the body is budgeting its energy carefully, spending only where it has to. Let's talk about Susan. She was 76, retired, and had always loved spending time with her grandkids. She'd bake cookies, play board games, help with homework. Then, little by little, she stopped doing those things. She'd sit on the couch while everyone else played. She'd smile, but stay quiet. She said she was tired, just a little off. Her family thought maybe she was just having a rough season. But over the next few months, her energy never returned. She started taking daily naps, yet still seemed worn out. Eventually, her doctor diagnosed her with advanced kidney disease, and her body had been warning her for months through that deep, unrelenting tiredness. So, how do you tell if this kind of fatigue is something to worry about? The key is consistency. If someone is tired all the time, regardless of how much rest they get, and if that tiredness is changing the way they live day to day, then it's time to look closer. Are they less engaged? Are they turning down invitations? Are they starting to withdraw from routines they once enjoyed? This isn't about laziness. It's not about giving up. It's about the body quietly saying, I don't have the strength I used to. And when we listen, we can offer help, not by pushing them to do more, but by supporting them with presence, with patience, and with understanding. Sometimes that means simplifying their environment. Sometimes it means just sitting with them in silence while they rest. Because your presence, not your pressure, is what they need most in that moment. Number 3, subtle changes in speech, voice, and how they communicate. Have you ever noticed someone's voice start to sound different, almost like it's fading? Maybe they used to speak clearly and confidently, but now their words come out slower, softer, or less often. These changes are easy to overlook, but they can be a significant sign, not just of age, but of the body preparing for a deeper transition. One of the earliest clues is when someone stops starting conversations. They might still respond when spoken to, but they're less likely to bring something up on their own. You might also notice longer pauses between words, trouble finishing thoughts, or a voice that sounds thin, weak, or raspy. Sometimes they even lose interest in talking altogether. This isn't always tied to memory loss or dementia. In fact, a lot of the time, the mind is still sharp, but the muscles involved in speaking, the throat, the mouth, the diaphragm, are getting tired. Just like walking upstairs takes more effort than it used to, so does talking. It's a task that requires breath, control, and strength, all of which may be in short supply. And then there's the emotional side. People nearing the end of life often feel more inward. They start reflecting more. They think, but speak less. That doesn't mean they don't want connection. It means they want quieter, simpler connection. Just being near someone becomes more valuable than talking to them. Listening becomes more important than being heard. Take the case of Harold. He was 79, a retired lawyer who had always been the loudest voice in the room. He loved to debate politics, tell stories, make jokes. But one Thanksgiving, his family noticed he barely spoke. When he did, his voice cracked. His sentences were short. He seemed content, but distant. "I'm just tired of talking," he said with a smile. But within a year, Harold was gone. His family now realizes that the silence wasn't sadness. It was the start of his body winding down. What's powerful about these speech changes is that they often come with a sense of peace. People aren't always scared. They're just tired of keeping up. Their words slow down because their body is slowing down. And when you notice it, the best thing you can do is adjust your pace to match theirs. Speak slower. Pause more. Let silence be okay. Because in those quiet moments, they often feel more loved than in 1,000 conversations. Number 4, unusual or inconsistent breathing patterns. Breathing is one of those things we rarely think about until it changes. It's automatic, it's constant, and most of the time, it's completely invisible to us. But when a person's breathing starts to shift, even in small, subtle ways, it can be a meaningful clue about what's happening beneath the surface. Many people nearing the end of life start to show changes in how they breathe. These changes aren't always dramatic. In fact, they're often gentle, almost unnoticeable, until you know exactly what to look for. It can start with something as small as a soft sigh every few minutes. Or maybe the person begins pausing mid-sentence more often because they're catching their breath. You might hear shallow breathing, almost like they're not filling their lungs all the way. Or they might develop a light wheeze that comes and goes, especially at night. Over time, the rhythm of their breath may change, slower, then faster, then uneven again. These are not just random quirks. They are small adjustments the body is making as it struggles to maintain balance with less and less energy. There's a specific kind of breathing pattern that's commonly seen in hospice care. It's called Cheyne-Stokes breathing. This is where a person's breaths gradually become deeper and faster, then suddenly slow down until there's a pause, sometimes several seconds long, before the cycle starts again. It can be deeply unsettling to hear if you've never encountered it before. But for the person experiencing it, it often feels like nothing at all. There's no panic, no pain, just the body naturally adapting to reduced oxygen levels and lower physical demand. Sometimes, these breathing changes are linked to specific conditions like heart failure, advanced lung disease, or certain medications. But in many cases, they're simply the body's way of shifting gears, slowing down, conserving energy, and preparing for a quieter state. These changes may appear weeks or even months before other symptoms do. That's why it's so important to pay attention. Let me share the story of Diane. She was 78 and had no major health problems, just the usual aches and stiffness. But her daughter noticed that during their weekly phone calls, Diane sounded winded, like she'd been running, even though she said she was just sitting down. Eventually, she stopped answering the phone altogether, saying talking made her too tired. A few months later, Diane was diagnosed with pulmonary fibrosis, a condition that had been progressing silently in her lungs for years. Her breathing told the story before anything else did. But there's another layer to all this, the emotional side. As breathing becomes more difficult, it often triggers anxiety, even if the person can't explain it. They might say they feel uneasy, restless, or like something isn't quite right. That anxiety itself can then make the breathing worse, creating a feedback loop that's exhausting for both body and mind. What can you do if you notice these signs? Start by listening. Really listen. Not just to the words they're saying, but to how they're breathing when they speak. Notice the pace, the pauses, the depth. And if they seem more breathless during daily tasks, brushing their hair, getting out of bed, even eating, take that seriously. You don't need to panic, but you do need to pay attention. Gentle actions help. Opening a window, propping them up with pillows, making sure the room has clean air, maybe using a humidifier or fan to ease discomfort. Most of all, meet them where they are. If they need more silence, give them silence. If they need shorter conversations, that's okay. Breathe with them, not for them. These moments aren't just medical. They're emotional, spiritual, and deeply human. A slow breath, shared in peace, can be one of the most comforting connections there is. Number 5. Pulling away from daily routines and personal care habits. Now, this is one that's easy to misread. It can look like laziness, depression, or forgetfulness. But when someone starts stepping back from their everyday habits, the small things like brushing their hair, changing their clothes, making the bed, or even showing interest in meals, it's often a quiet sign that something deeper is going on. This doesn't happen overnight. It starts small. Maybe they miss a shower one day. Maybe they stop tidying up like they used to. But over time, that lack of interest grows into something more noticeable. You might walk into their home and see dishes piling up, or realize they've worn the same clothes for several days. Maybe they start skipping meals, saying they're not hungry, or leaving food untouched. They might stop styling their hair, stop wearing jewelry, or stop participating in activities they once looked forward to. It's not that they don't care anymore. It's that the act of caring takes energy they simply don't have. When the body begins to prepare for the end, that energy starts shifting inward. The things that once felt important begin to fade, and routines that used to give structure to the day now feel irrelevant or burdensome. Let me tell you about Norma. She was 83 and had always been proud of her appearance. She got her hair done every 2 weeks, kept her clothes neat and clean, and took pride in setting a proper table for every meal. But over a period of months, her daughter noticed that Norma had started to let those habits go. Her hair was unbrushed. Her clothes didn't match. Meals were skipped. She spent more and more time sitting quietly in her chair, not reading or watching TV, just sitting. When asked if something was wrong, Norma simply said, "I'm just tired." Eventually, it became clear that she was in the early stages of a terminal illness. But her body and spirit had already begun to shift. The routines no longer mattered to her in the way they once had. When someone starts letting go of daily routines, it's not always because they're sad or mentally slipping. Sometimes, it's because their focus is shifting. Their world becomes quieter. Their priorities move inward. They begin thinking more about the past, about memories, about people who've come and gone. There's a kind of surrender that happens, not a giving up, but a letting go. It's subtle. It's not dramatic, but it's real. And that shift in attention, from the outside world to the inside one, often shows up in how they approach their day. Getting dressed becomes less important than sitting quietly in a familiar chair. Preparing a meal might be replaced with a cup of tea and a few crackers. The need to keep up appearances fades, not out of neglect, but out of a deep desire to rest, reflect, and conserve what little energy they have left for the things that truly matter, like relationships, peace, and comfort. Now, this kind of change can look a lot like depression, but there are differences. Depression often comes with sadness, guilt, hopelessness. What we're talking about here is more like stillness. It's a gentle release of the pressure to keep going and doing. It's as if the person is saying, "I've done enough. Now I just want to be." This can be hard for family members to watch, especially when they remember a loved one is active, driven, or always busy. But it's important to recognize that this slowing down is not necessarily a sign of despair. In many cases, it's actually a sign of acceptance. If you notice this shift in someone you love, try not to rush them back into routines. That might feel like the helpful thing to do, but it can also add unnecessary stress. Instead, offer small, gentle acts of care. Sit with them while they eat, even if it's just a few bites. Brush their hair for them, not as a chore, but as a quiet expression of love. Ask what they feel like doing, and be okay if the answer is nothing. Sometimes presence is more powerful than productivity. And if this change is happening to you, if you're starting to feel disconnected from routines, from busy habits, from the things you used to do every day, know this. It doesn't mean you're lazy, or broken, or giving up. It may simply mean your body and spirit are calling for a slower pace, a softer rhythm. You don't need to fight that. It's okay to rest. It's okay to let some things go. What matters now isn't how much you get done. It's how fully you can be present with yourself and the people you love. All of these signs, the chill in the bones, the deep fatigue, the quiet voice, the changing breath, and the release of routine, are not random. They are meaningful. They are the body's quiet way of preparing for transition. And while they don't always mean the end is near, they often appear in the year leading up to it. Recognizing them isn't about living in fear. It's about living with clarity. It's about seeing what's really happening, not just on the outside, but within. When you begin to notice these patterns, you have a chance to respond with more wisdom, more grace, and more care. You don't need to fix everything. You don't need to rush to solutions. You just need to show up, to listen, to observe, to sit with someone in their discomfort without judgment, without trying to pull them back to how they used to be. Because the truth is, they're changing. And that change, while hard, is natural. This awareness is a gift. It allows us to love more deeply. It helps us have meaningful conversations while there's still time. It makes room for peace, not panic, for tenderness, not tension. Whether you're seeing these signs in someone else or you're feeling them in yourself, try to approach them with acceptance. This is part of life, not the end of life's value, but part of its full story. And here's the most important thing to remember. Noticing these signs doesn't mean you've failed to help. It doesn't mean the clock is up. What it means is, now is the time to be fully present, to offer comfort, to listen, to slow down and make space for love, for memory, for goodbye if needed, and for connection while it still matters. Thank you for staying with us through this message. If you found this helpful, think about how you might use what you've learned. Maybe you'll call someone today. Maybe you'll sit quietly with a loved one instead of urging them to get up and do something. Maybe you'll treat your own fatigue or silence with a little more kindness. These signs, when we see them clearly, give us a chance to respond, not with fear, but with compassion. And sometimes, That simple shift in how we see things can make all the difference. We'll see you again in the next video, right here on Sage Grains.